Obernolte, 5 minutes.
Well, thank you very much. Let me share the frustration expressed by some of my colleagues that no one from Change or from United is here to answer questions. So I'll ask some of the questions I would have asked them if they were here, and I'm hoping that with all the expertise here on the panel, we can get it answered. First of all, let me point out the fact that we've had some really valuable testimony about how to prevent future cyber attacks, but I think that although there have been some great suggestions, and we should certainly do a lot of the things that have been suggested, it's not going to solve the problem, right? This is going to be with us just because closing off cyber attacks is completely is a fool's errand because it restricts the usage of legitimate users, right? So I think we also need to simultaneously focus on response to cyber attacks. So, first of all, let me express my frustration that the Colonial Pipeline hack was 3 years ago. 3 years ago. The same ransomware group, same method of attack, the same debilitating functionality, same impact on our infrastructure. How on earth are we sitting here today talking about an identical cyber attack that took weeks to respond to? I don't understand. I mean, this isn't rocket science, right? How are we not able to develop infrastructure where we can't just, Mr. Rigi, you were talking about restoring from backups. Why is it the work of more than a day just to take all the systems offline, disconnect them from each other, and one by one restore them from the backup from the day before? Why can we not do that?
Well, I'm certainly not speaking for United, but in general terms, even if you do have good offline secure backups employing the latest, what we call immutable technology, meaning that even if the bad guys reach the backups, which they'll try to do, they won't be able to alter, delete, or encrypt them. And as some of my technology experts will, I think, confirm here, it is a very slow, methodical process to restore systems from backup. It's not like flipping a light switch. You got to first figure out how did the bad guys get in. You got to make sure that entry point vulnerability has been closed. You got to make sure that they're no longer in your system. And then it's a slow, methodical process for restoration, literally application by application, server by server. So we would hope a company like United had the capability. If anybody would have the capability, they would have the capability to restore faster.
Right. Well, it just seems like we've had 3 years to think about this problem. It doesn't seem like asking too much for anyone that has a sophisticated network architecture that's critical infrastructure to look at their architecture and put together a continuity of business plan that lets them restore that in less than a day. I mean, I think that everybody is going to need to take a look at that. Now, let me ask this question, since no one that I've spoken to seems to have the answer. So United paid $22 million in Bitcoin to Black Cat for a decryption key. Was the restoration of their services as a result of the receipt of that key, or did they restore it through, as we've been discussing, restoring it from backups?
I'm not sure if that question, I'm not in a position to answer that.
Does anyone know?
Reports.
Okay, well, the reason it's pertinent is because Colonial paid $4 million in Bitcoin for a decryption key, but it turned out to be the decryption process turned out to be so slow that restoring from backups was faster. So, I mean, here's a related question. We're talking about how to prevent future cyber attacks. One good way of preventing it is not to pay ransom, right? If no one paid a ransom, guess what? We wouldn't have any cyber attacks because there'd be no profit incentive. So let me ask the question, and anyone on the panel would be interested in your opinion, should United have paid the ransom?
So coming from the FBI, I'll just give what the standard guidance is. Of course, we strongly discourage any entity to pay ransom because it encourages these type of attacks. But yet at the same time, there is no, I think, support to ban ransom payments totally, only in the sense that if patient safety is at risk, then it becomes a business decision. Even the FBI says they strongly discourage payment of ransom, but ultimately it's a business decision. So if patient lives are at risk, then of course, then there's going to have to be a very difficult decision made.
Sure, I understand. And I'm not in favor of, through government fiat, restricting people from paying ransom. But my point is, if no one paid a ransom, this problem would go away. Anyway, I see my time's expired, but let me just reiterate the point that it's been 3 years since Colonial, right? Anyone with a complex network infrastructure that's vulnerable to this kind of attack needs to be looking at their infrastructure, putting together continuity of business plans that make it so that they can restore their functionality in less than a day. There is no excuse at this point. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.